Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's live Q&A episode. My name is Marcy Melzer, and I am an intuitive speech and language pathologist consultant, and I help parents teach their late-talking children how to use the words they need to share their wisdom with the world. And I do that in my Waves of Communication parent coaching programs online. And I also do these live Q&As every week on Thursdays. So if you are watching this on the replay, you are welcome to join me next week on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on my Facebook Waves of Communication page. And you can ask me questions too. We are here on Independence Day. I've got my American flag shirt on that I get to wear on this day and answer some questions about speech and language. So here's the question from Melissa. She says, my son has made huge progress. I noticed that whenever I would ask him a yes or no question, he would either not reply at all or just repeat the last word I said. So in that case, it looks like, do you want a whatever? Usually is a yes/no question, like, do you want a cookie? And the child says cookie. And then she goes on to say, so last week, she started to follow up her question with saying yes or no. And so now 96%, so she must have been collecting some data, 96% of the time he's said the appropriate answer, either yes or no, and with exclamation points. So she was excited about getting that response. And then her question is, why does it take me asking him yes or no to get the appropriate response? And then she goes on to talk about, is this part of apraxia because he was diagnosed with CAS, which is child apraxia of speech, earlier this year, and he's 4.5 now. All right, so this is a question. It's kind of a complex question, but it surrounds this idea of yes and no questions. And I'm going to lay it on the line and let you know right now, if you have a late talking child, if your child is not using verbal speech to communicate regularly, then answering answering questions is not something that they know how to do. Well, and what you're doing by putting yes on the end is you're saying, do you want a cookie? Yes or no? Well, yes, the answer is yes if you put it that way, and that's why your child's getting it right, because you have told them, if you want the cookie, you say yes, because they know no means no. Because if you ask the child if they want something and they don't want it, they always say no. If they want it, they say what it is. If they don't want it, they say no. It's like if you showed it to them and you say, and the child didn't want it, they'd say no. Or give you a nonverbal. They'd put up their hand and walk away. That's how you'd know they wouldn't want it. But if the child is starting to use words and you go like this to offer them something, they are not listening even to what you're saying. They're looking at the thing in your hand. And they're deciding in their head, do I want that, yes or no? And if they want it, they've learned in their therapy that if I want something, I say what it is. So they see it in your hand. They're not listening to the question, yes or no. That's why they're not answering it. And they're looking at the thing in your hand and they're saying, cup. Cup. I know I learned in therapy that when I want something, I say what it is. I say the thing. And so when you ask your child, do you want the thing? The child's going to go, the thing. The thing. Yes, I want the thing. They don't have to say, yes, I want the thing, because they don't understand that yes or no is a right answer. They just know to ask for the thing by the thing. And so when a kid doesn't say the words that you want them to say, you think they get it wrong. Like he's not answering yes or no. Well, he doesn't understand that you want him to answer no. So what did this mom do? She taught him to answer yes or no by saying yes or no. Why does he only answer yes or no if I tell him to answer yes or no? Well, because your child is prompt dependent. Your child is waiting for you to tell them what words to say to just get the thing. They just want to get the thing. What do I have to do to get the thing? I have to say a word. I have to turn around backwards. I have to do a backflip. I have to say yes. Okay, yes, I want the thing. If you're working with sign language, it's the same thing. What do I have to do to get the thing? I just did a strategy session with some family today. In therapy, their child learned to say help. Okay, whenever he brought him something and wanted him to open it or wanted to get something that he couldn't get on his own, they said, sign help. So as parents, every time they watch their child struggling with trying to open something, they say, oh, are you struggling? Obvious, right? Because they're trying to prompt the child to say help. But what does that do when somebody states the obvious? Here I am struggling with this thing, and all you're asking me to do is, are you struggling there? Are you struggling there with that thing? And you're going to be like, are you kidding me? You're standing there watching me struggle with this thing, right? And so what's the child going to say? Struggle, I guess, they're not going to say yes, because that's obvious. When you ask your child to say yes to the obvious, they don't understand why. Why do I have to confirm what you're saying? You're the talker here. Right? You're asking your child to confirm what you are guessing them to do if you ask these questions. All right, so that's what I was talking about, yes, no questions. And then I did get one other question in my group today, and I get this question very commonly. Almost every week I hear people asking me about when their kids will say a single word, but they won't move past a single word. And it's very much like what I was talking about with the yes-no thing. Kids will get to the point where they're saying single words if they have been taught to use speech as an exchange to get anything, to make anything happen. So if your child is waiting for you to show them something, they give you a word, they get that something. Or, do you want a prompt? Do you want to go? You present some potential reward for them. Your child doesn't know that words are important for more than one purpose. Okay? We use real language. Like, we say words to make things happen. Stop. Give me, mine, can I have a new car, please? I mean, we use words to get what we want so that other people understand what we need and want. That's one way to use words. And it's the first way that kids are taught to use words by therapists because it's easy to teach. Here's the thing, let's talk about the thing. You can see, feel, hear, taste, touch the thing. And here's a word that goes with this thing that you see, feel, hear, say, taste, touch. And so you learn that there's a word that go with this thing. But you never learn words for the things you can't see, feel, hear, taste, touch, right? You can feel feelings, but it's really hard to teach a child when you feel that thing, here's the word for it. Right? You can't teach that unless you know a child very well, right? And that's what parents do. They know kids very well. So this is a really easy way to help kids shift from using words to label stuff that they see, feel, hear, taste, touch, and move into talking about those things. They have to see you talking about those things. It's big, it's yellow, it's wet, it's loud, it's fun, right? It's happy, it's cool, I like it, I want to do it again. They need to hear you express your opinions about the things that you explore together so they see, oh, because there's another reason to talk. Like I said before, there's that reason to just ask for things, but then there's the reason to talk about and share our experiences. And this is why kids learn to talk, because they want to talk. And this is how kids learn to say the words that they want to say in their own hearts and heads, and not the words you're trying to tell them to say. Because it's easy to tell a child to say phone. Here's the phone, say phone. But it's hard to tell a child to say, you feel happy. Say, I feel happy. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel natural to teach a child that thing. But if you say, you look happy about holding the phone right now, and you say that enough times while your child is feeling happy in the moment, You don't make a happy situation to teach a child, this is a happy time now when we're all, are you feeling happy with me? Happy, this feels happy. The child's gonna look at you like you're nuts, right? That's not natural teaching. That's just like labeling what you can see, feel, hear, and see. Look at me, I'm happy. Unless a child feels happy and they relate to how that feels. And the way you help a child say the words for how they feel is by watching them. And you as parents know how they feel just by looking at their face. And when you provide the right words for those feelings, it actually helps trigger in your child's brain, yeah, I feel happy, she's right. I do feel happy, because they know what happy means. They just never attributed it to how they feel inside, because an outside person can't tell a person how they feel unless you intuit as a parent, I think he feels pretty happy right now. I mean, you can do it by looking at somebody's facial expressions. That's how they teach it. They teach kids to look at a picture of a kid having a facial expression and have the child intuit how that person feels. Ooh, that person must feel happy, they're smiling, right? But a child doesn't know that unless they see a lot of people feeling a lot of things. So you can't teach these feelings unless you experience them along with your child, which is what language facilitation is. So there's words to talk about things, but they never move past labeling them if it's just something to see, feel, hear. The way to move into more expansive language is by talking about the things that you are using, without any expectation of this imitation. Because imitation is just a therapist and parent's way to test. That I'm doing all kinds of videos all summer long to teach parents how to teach your kids to communicate, how to use verbal speech to communicate all the things, not just labeling, how they feel, what they're doing, what they're excited about, when they like something, when they don't like something. But I don't teach you to teach kids to answer yes, no questions, because you have to learn how to use language before you can answer questions. So if you're asking your child questions, that's a strategy that's blocking your child's progress, and you need to watch my videos about blocking. You need to figure out what you're doing to stop your child from moving forward, because in 99.9% of the time, there may be neurological problems even going on, but most of the time, even despite those neurological problems, there are things that are going on in your household that you can change today. So even if your child has whatever diagnosis, I've worked with families, one little girl has absent corpus callosum, her brain doesn't communicate to the sides, the neural pathways that are designed to make speech aren't there in her brain, defined on MRI. And this little girl learned to talk from her mom, because kids' brains are amazing and parents are incredibly, incredibly effective as language facilitators, more effective than speech therapists by far. And when you understand what kind of responsibility you have as parents for where your child is now, not even considering any diagnosis or medical issue, what's happening as far as communication, stimulation, and facilitation in your home. When you consider what your effect is on that right now, in a negative way, potentially, then you can see how significant your effect can be when you facilitate the right words the right way at the right time, always. And have fun with it, because if it isn't fun, it isn't fun. You'll hear me say that on every video almost, because every strategy we do here has to be fun for children. We have to make talking your child's idea, not your idea. The only way kids learn anything functionally that they keep with them forever and ever and ever is that it's their idea. And we want to teach kids to talk because they want to talk, not because we want them to say words. And just by teaching a kid to say a word over and over and over again is not the same as language facilitation. I'm going to say that one more time. Just teaching a child to say a word, do a sign, hand a picture over and over and over again. This is a behavior of saying words, handing a picture, doing a sign. It only teaches, it's different neural pathways in the brain that are involved in learning natural language. And you're not stimulating those important things by this imitation-based training. The only way you stimulate the necessary neural pathways that we're all born with, that all kids have. And there's a question from Gwen. Hey, Gwen. I know Gwen's somebody who's been following me for a while now. She says, my little girl has lots of new words now using your strategies. Yay, Gwen! But lots of them start with B. Example, the go is bow, gone is bon. Suggests she had bilateral glue ear and has grommets, but the ear tubes are not functioning properly because one is blocked and both are falling out. Okay, so she can't hear clearly. We have to wait for her ear tubes to fall out completely before they can be replaced, which is going to take time. With glue ear and ear fluid, it is a challenge and a big frustration for a lot of parents because it's hard to keep those ears evacuated. It's hard to keep the fluid out. That's why the tubes are grommets. And this is, for those of you who don't know, if the eardrum if this is the outside of the ear, if I'm talking about my eardrum looking like this, thick fluid, pussy fluid gets stuck behind the eardrum, and the eardrum can't move. Eardrums have to move to process sound waves for the sound to get in for us to be able to hear. So it's like a drum. That's why they call it an eardrum, because it moves like the top of a drum. So if you had a big bass drum, but it was stuffed full of muck, it would go, it would make a real nice resonant boom, boom, boom. So the eardrum can't function properly with the fluid behind it, so the hearing all sounds muffled. It doesn't come in right. The system's all just not working. It's, glued up. That's why they call it glue ear. So they put a tube in between to let the fluid drain out, and the doctor will also evacuate it with like some vacuum to get it all out, and suddenly the child can hear again. But unless that area stays clear and free from infection, then it can rebuild, and that's what happens. And it usually stays with kids who have otherwise a lot of mucus anyway, with kind of allergies or ear, nose, and throat things. So a lot of times with kids who have repeated things, I often caution parents to don't forget to look at their throat processes, because if they are maybe have big tonsils that are harboring a lot of bacteria here, all of that bacteria creates mucus in your head, which contributes to this ear fluid. And kids' brains are small and round and not long and oval like adult brains, and so those tubes stay flat, and as kids get older, they drain this way actually, so that they drain down your throat better, but they stay in. So if the throat is affected, that affects the drainage as well. So make sure when you go back, for your ear stuff, that you have them do throat intervention as well if necessary, so that you can keep that fluid to a minimum. That's just the health end of things. But if you don't know, because you can't know on any given day how much fluid your child has, because like you said, at this point you've got intervention, you know where you are. What's going to be really super, super important for your child is that you focus on a lot of facial things. When she's hearing less, you might notice her having better eye contact. You have to, because now that you've stopped prompting, if you're using my strategies and seeing more words, you don't have pressure. It causes kids pressure to look away from you when you prompt them. So it's super, super important for kids with ear infection problems or ear fluid problems that you don't pressure them for talking, because when you pressure someone to do anything, they look away from you. And if you put pressure on them, if you make things easy and fun and say the words that are in their head, then they will look at you more. So when kids' hearing is compromised, you need to emphasize the visual stuff on their face. So you want to encourage them to look at your face more, especially your mouth. So you use a lot of mirrors, hold things by your mouth, all of that stuff. But in order to get your kid to look at your face in the first place, you have to not make them intimidated. You have to make them want to see you. And the way to make them want to look at you is by looking at you, by saying the words they want to say. And if your child is missing up like G's and B's because they don't see your mouth clearly enough, she's relying on what she hears only and not what your mouth is doing. Because when you think about it, gong, bong, it doesn't, in process, it doesn't sound so much different if your ears are plugged, gong, bong. But if you're looking at it, it looks way different. Okay, so it could have to be part of how she's had a whole bunch of time where she's heard words all wrong. So when we talk about language, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if she heard them wrong over and over and over again, she's going to say them wrong. And then after she starts talking, you're going to have to work on teaching her to do more articulation after her hearing is better. But in the meantime, you're just going to have to do a lot of encouragement for her to look at your face and do that kind of looking. So that's what's going to be really good. Jane says, I have fluid in my ears and I've grown up and put a drop of peroxide. So yeah, it's all about working with your doctor about doing as much preventative holistic things that can keep your kids' sinus systems as fluid free as possible. Great info, you're welcome. Where to get started for a 15-year-old, limited language speech services in our country. So for an older child, there is no limit on age for language facilitation. So if your child is, showing the basic criteria, they want to communicate with you, they've got a healthy ear, nose, and throat system, and they can learn other things from you, then you can teach a child of any age how to use natural verbal speech. And what I recommend for you is to start looking at the videos on my website. I have a free class, wavesofcommunication.com. You can see a free class over there about how it works, what language facilitation is, how it's structured, how it's actually implemented with families. It's a 45-minute class where you can go through and see what often blocks kids from talking and what keeps kids nonverbal. So when kids get to be 15 and they're late talkers still, because there's no limit, like I said, because even adults who are 80 years old who had speech and lost it are learning to talk again with language facilitation. A gentleman that I know works with neurologically damaged because of stroke patients, and they're learning to talk with this same method. So yeah, so that's what it is. That's how you do it. You have to use natural language facilitation to show your child how to use words, because right now something else is being used as communication, and that's your standard set whatever. So you have to figure out what's going on with the language that your child is using, nonverbal stuff, if he's, and combined with some words and gestures and however your child's communicating, and you have to understand and show them, get it to be their idea by shifting over to use verbal speech instead, and helping them understand that verbal speech is easy and not as difficult and challenging as they think, because most late talkers think talking is as hard as climbing Mount Everest, and they don't like it and they don't want to try, and it's because their intervention was so prompt-based. They were nagged so much to say words that they don't like it. And so if your child had a bunch of that therapy, or maybe even you as a parent, even if you said services are limited in your country, if you as a parent nagged your child to try to say words, they stopped watching you to learn from you, and you need to learn how to do it again. So my best recommendation, especially if you have an older child like this, is to work with me, because I can analyze in your family's household what are the habits that are keeping your family in your current language situation. Because unless we understand what's going on now, and you make changes, then what's going on right now is going to continue to going on. It's all about learning how to teach your child to do something different in a way that they like and they buy into. And you have to stop pressuring and blocking and doing the things that probably you're subconsciously doing, because parents who have kids who are 3-year-olds are in these habits. I can't imagine somebody who has a 15-year-old. You're going to be in these habits forever, unless you change. But you absolutely can, because I've got 8, 9-year-olds doing it. So I don't have any 15-year-olds in my program yet, but you definitely could do it. So regardless of where you are, you can work with me on the internet. So go to my website, wavesofcommunication.com, and learn how that goes. And Gwen says, thanks, you're super welcome. So Darcy says, my 3-year-old seems to skip the consonant sounds and say more of the vowel sounds in the word. For example, banana, she says anana, or bye-bye, she says ay-ay. How can we help her now? Okay, so there's a lot of reasons that kids leave off sounds in words. I just talked earlier about how kids who have hearing issues, They don't hear words correctly the first time they hear them, or the first maybe 150,000 times they hear them. They don't hear them right because their ears are clogged. And if kids have ears clogged, the first thing, if kids have articulation problems, the first thing I always do with every family is check your child's hearing, because like I said, garbage in, garbage out. If a child can't hear very clearly produced speech, then they're not going to say them. And so when a child starts to leave out parts of words, like you said, you're leaving off the consonants, you're noticing that it's a pattern in your child. It's because your child isn't focusing on saying all the parts of the words. And I'm going to refer you back to the earlier strategy about encouraging facial content. You need to have your child looking at your face and at your mouth a lot while you're talking, so that your child knows what the mouth does to say these words the right way. Banana. And whenever your child says a word inaccurately, the strategy to use is to recast it without correcting. So you don't want to say, no, 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 it's not na na na, it's banana. You don't want to do that. You don't want to go, no, 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 no. You don't want to stop the flow of the natural language, because remember, we're trying to facilitate natural language here, and putting any kind of block to listening and natural language flow takes the child out of language learning mode and into it's a behavior you're fixing. And literally the learning processes of the brain shut off. The language learning process of the brain shut off and shift over to imitation mode or avoidance mode, because they don't want to do it. So the most important thing when your child is saying words that you don't understand at all is you have to tell them that you don't understand and have them try to say it harder. And if when they do try to say it, you said, oh, you want banana. And that's what recasting is. It's just saying what your child said back to them, but in a new context. Not banana, banana. Say banana, say it again, banana. No, you're going to do, oh, your child says, na, na, na. And you want, oh, you want banana. Banana, please. Say banana, banana here. Banana, please, while you give your child the banana. You said banana. Even though she didn't say banana, she said na, na, na. And the other person isn't intimidated or pressured or made to feel bad. They can, in their head, make their own self-judgment about whether they said it right or wrong. So, all right, Tony says, so glad I came across this post. My 5-year-old boy has speech problems, but his speech and language therapy is only 2 times a year. Right. I don't know what you're going to get in 2 times a year. That therapist better be talking to you, because Tony, you are the only one who can teach your child to use natural language. So that's the thing. That's what you do. You find the way to present your child with the words they want to say, saying the things that they have in their heart and their ideas. And this is how you teach them to use natural language. And a lot of people don't understand. You know, my post on my Waves of Communication page today was about independence. And I'm wearing my Independence Day shirt and all that, you know, because I'm talking about this language facilitation to be able to teach your child to communicate all of their ideas, right? It allows them to independently share those ideas without you. And most late talkers, in fact, all late talkers, no matter how old they are stuck in a mindset of dependence. They're stuck in a mindset where they have to depend on caregivers and parents to communicate the messages they feel in their heart, or to understand them by their own behaviors. They wait their lives for other people to say the words that are in their hearts, because they can't say those words themselves. That's why when a late talker, you're playing with something and you say a word like, you know, that resonates with your child, you'll see them make eye contact. Even a child who's doing something else. It's just like if you're having conversation with your friend and you have the similar idea, you know, remember last 4th of July, those fireworks were amazing, and the person who was there with you and shared that experience, they're going to make eye contact with you, and they're going to look at you go, that's right, remember that guy who almost burned his hand off, or whatever, right? Because you have a similar story to share in your head. And when you share a similar story, then your child knows that you get them. They know that you understand them. They know that you're focusing on them. They know that you get what they're trying to say in their heart, okay? And with you as parents, you're going to respond to that, right? You're going to give them a hug if they're giving you a smile. If they're giving you behavior, you might respond however you respond to whatever you interpret, because your child's communicating it to you with their facial expression. They look at you sideways. I said that today. They look at you sideways and you know they want a banana split with only the chocolate frosting on the strawberry. And they look at you one way. If you know your child that well, like their behaviors, you know exactly what they want just by their behaviors, you're doing them a disservice by not facilitating language in the moment when they're having those feelings. But what happens so often is parents just fall into this, I know what he wants, and then the only time you say it out loud is when someone else doesn't. Like grandma doesn't know that when you look sideways you want the banana split with chocolate frosting only on the strawberry. So you have to say, no, he only wants it, blah, 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 blah. And child's like, oh, thank God mom's saying that. Because how am I ever going to communicate that to grandma? Right? Because grandma doesn't know how to read my mind like mom does. And so when you teach a child, because you are the parents, you're the ones who know, grandma can't do this even grandma who loves him more than God. That's why the speech therapist can't do them, and they know all about speech therapy stuff. You know, only parents can do this because you reach where your child is. You know what that look is. And then you give your child the words for that look, and then they start saying them because your child is just waiting. They're just begging for you. Please say these words, because then I know my message is getting across. It's the only way your child, that's why you beg your child to say words. It's the only way I know he has words if he says them. So I'm going to prompt him and ask him questions and make him say words all the time. It's the only way I know he's talking. The only way your child knows you get them is by you saying the words that are in their head. And if you don't get them, they melt down. And this is why language facilitation has to come from parents, at least first. You know, you as parents can get your child ready so they can be the best speech therapy students ever. But no speech therapist is ever going to be able to teach your child how to communicate that they're afraid in the middle of the night while they're having a nightmare, unless your speech therapist is sleeping with your child or in the same household like you are, right? So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for all your questions. Tony says, I'm from England, so maybe a little different here, but I don't really know how to help apart from repeating what they say in the correct way. Not really been given some tips from his speech therapist. That kind of happens too. Thank you. We'll check out your YouTube channel. Tony, that's the best place to start. Once you start watching my videos, you will get it. You will see it. And it's my mission to put out content this summer, and I'm doing it. That all you do is, if you intuitively understand this concept and really dig in, try to work with your child and listen to what I'm saying here on these videos and take it to heart and take real action, then you can teach your child to talk, because it's not, there's no magic pill necessary. It's just parents with language facilitation. That's all it takes. All right, everybody. Happy Independence Day. Enjoy your fireworks. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy your weekend. And get out there and get your kids talking. And if you want to learn more about my programs, my YouTube channel, Waves of Communication, my Facebook page, Waves of Communication, new daily bloggy stuff every day. But I put out all kinds of stuff, information. It literally is, you know, everything you need. And if you have questions, always join me on Thursdays, 2:00 p.m. Eastern, on my Waves of Communication page right here on Facebook to see me on Facebook. Ask me the questions you want to ask. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all on my next video.